Welcome to The Pivot, stories of people who made a change. My name is Andrew Osenga, and today we're going to talk to an author named Liuan Huska. So I found Liuan through a book that she wrote about pain. And that sounds like something you're like, oh, great, I can't wait to listen to a podcast about pain. Yeah, I get it, right? But here's the thing. We're talking about pivots and the way life changes, and life changes unexpectedly. And for a lot of you, pain is a way that has happened. That has been the story in my family. It's not affected me personally that much, to be honest. But some of you know what we're going through as a family right now. A little over 2 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with a really nasty cancer. She probably had it a few years before that, was living with chronic pain for years before that. So we've been having pain as a theme in our home for a long, long time. That has shaped how we live, the things that we say yes to and no to, the reason we went here on a trip and not there, or the reason that I took my daughters on a trip and my wife didn't come. All these different choices, the reason we maybe still live in this house and didn't move. Just a shocking number of decisions that we've had to make or that have been made for us by the presence of pain in our lives. And yeah, I know that is the story for a lot of you listening, whether that's you specifically or somebody you love and care about, somebody in your home, in your immediate family, somebody you work with, somebody you were going to work with, somebody you were going to be in a relationship with. Who knows? Who knows? But it's so real, and it's something we all deal with or will in the future or have in the past. And so I was really, really thrilled that when we asked Liuan if she would come on the podcast, she said yes. She's written a book called Hurting Yet Whole, Reconciling Body and Spirit in Chronic Pain and Illness. She talks about hurting and pain through the lens of theology and spirituality. And oh my gosh, yes, let's talk about that. But you know what? She's so cool. She talks about that and so much other stuff. As you can imagine, writing that book means you now sort of walk around with a scarlet letter of like, I'm the pain girl. And so we get to talk about so many other fun things. She and her husband took their kids for a year all around South America, and they called it world schooling. And then they wrote a kid's book about it that's about to come out. How cool is that? Let's talk about world schooling for a minute, okay? And right when we had this conversation, Liuan had just started a new role with an organization called A Rocha, which a number of my friends have worked with over the years. It's a Christian conservation organization. So we get to talk about that too. She writes cool things on her Substack. She's writing cool books. She's doing cool things. This was a really wonderful conversation. We get to go into the hard stuff and we get to go into the really fun stuff. And let's be honest, guys, that's me, that's you. Our lives are hard and fun, and we get to live all of it. And so let's do that. So this is my conversation with Liuan Huska. I would love to know, before we jump in on some of the topics of your books, how did you become a writer? Like, did you want to be a writer from when you were a kid? Was this something that you discovered later in life? How did you end up getting to this point in your life?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed journaling, and in high school I was on the newspaper. So I had some experience. And then in college, I got into anthropology, which is actually really similar to journalism, that you're looking at things from the outside and just asking, as an observer, what's going on and why, but from a more academic perspective. So I thought I was going to go into a PhD in anthropology. But after I did my master's in the social sciences, I realized I didn't want to write for just like 10 people in an academic journal, which is, I mean, I know a lot of academics end up having a broader reach and can be really public facing, but the thought of getting a PhD that average PhDs in anthropology take 8 years, it was really a drag. And I think the other thing is, it's really specialized, and I realized that I'm kind of a generalist, that I can't spend 8 years on one topic, and I really love to get into something new and just go off on a whole tangent on whatever it is. So that's how I ended up more in journalism and as kind of a general audience writer.
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Southeast Texas and Southern California. I was born in China, so I immigrated to the US when I was 3 with my parents. But yeah, spent my junior high and high school years in a small town in Southeast Texas. My family was the only Chinese family. We owned a Chinese restaurant. There were, yeah, mostly white community. So yeah, that's kind of where I was formed. That's where I came to the faith in just a non-denominational church. But then I started going to a Baptist church, a Southern Baptist church. So yeah, that's kind of my faith roots, I guess.
Yeah. How have you seen that shape being the only Chinese family in a West Texas town?
Yeah,
How is
Southeast Texas town.
Southeast Texas town? How has that shaped you? How have you seen that in your life now as you've grown up?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like an outsider a lot of the time. So there were all these things that social things that people did, like homecoming and corsages, and I don't know, things that, my friends'
Huh.
parents and their moms were really into, but my mom knew nothing about and wasn't able to help me, do these things that other people did. So there's definitely that feeling, but I think it contributed to my just kind of my inclination to be an anthropologist and a journalist because I'm used to taking
Yeah.
that like insider outsider, like kind of being like sort of on the periphery looking in at things and being like, huh, what's going on? And but then I also I didn't, because I grew up in a town that didn't have a lot of Asians. I didn't really form like an Asian American identity. I mean, all my friends were white. So um, when I went to college and there was an Asian American group on campus, I was like, oh, like this is a whole different culture, like subculture. Like my family is obviously Chinese American, but or an immigrant Chinese family, but Asian American is kind of its own conglomeration of different
Hmm.
Asian cultures in the United States. So yeah, it's just, I guess it just made me have kind of an outsider perspective a lot of the time.
Yeah. So what was it like then finding that group in college?
I mean, it was cool having people that looked like me, and
Hmm.
I definitely could connect with some people, but um, I didn't always get it either.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting how that experience led to that desire though to study anthropology. That's really fascinating. Um, so then, uh, your study and when you took a shift into journalism, was that in college that you decided to sort of make that shift?
No, I was still going on the PhD track when
Oh
I
wow.
did my master's degree. That was at the University of Chicago, and I don't know if you're familiar with that school, but it's a very intellectual place.
Yeah,
Like
we took a
just
tour of that with one of my daughters, and
okay,
we're like,
yeah,
"Whoa, this place is wild." Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's very heady. The motto, like, uh, what do you call it? Like the informal motto is "Where fun comes to die." I don't know if you heard that while you were there, and then because it's on the south side and it's surrounded by a lot of African American communities and just kind of like um a challenging place to live. So the secondary
yeah.
motto is where fun comes to get mugged. So there was also
Oh
that.
my gosh.
So my husband and I lived in Oak Park, which is on the west side of Chicago. So I would take the Green Line in all the way
Yeah,
into downtown and then south to the University of Chicago. So I'd go through all the neighborhoods. I never had a problem, but I've definitely had heard stories of people
yeah.
having issues. Yeah,
Wow,
so
you got the full Chicago experience.
I did. Yeah, now we don't live in the city at all. It's like once you have kids, you sort of start moving out and need some more space and can't afford it in the city.
Yeah, yeah. No, Chicago. Yeah, I love Chicago. It's a fun place to visit. I grew up 2 hours south, and I love. I mean, you can only get that kind of pizza in Chicago. Yeah, a few days is usually for me good enough, and then Yeah, we'll be back in a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely love the forest preserves and like more wide open spaces nowadays.
Yeah. So you guys now, where are you? You said you're out sort of by Wheaton.
Yeah, so we're about if you take the Metro from downtown Chicago, it's like an hour ride from downtown to where we are. So we're a
Okay.
stop along the Union Pacific West Line.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I love that you can take a train into the city.
Hmm.
That's nice. That's nice. So what when you decided to make that switch from studying anthropology, you're getting your PhD, you just decide, okay, I want to write for more than 10 people. I want to study a wider range of topics. What did you do with that decision?
Hmm. I started freelancing, so had some connections to Christianity Today and other magazines. So started doing some blog writing. That was kind of the heyday of blogging, like in
Yeah.
the 2010s. And then I started doing some more reporting. Did some science journalism for Christianity Today and really enjoyed that, kind of breaking down research into like understandable chunks for a general audience. And then I got just more and more concerned about environmental issues, just
Hmm.
being a human being in this world today and kind of
Yeah.
noticing things and just being sad, about pollution and the way that humans have really impacted creation in a negative way often. So I started doing some environmental journalism after that. In my town, so I live in West Chicago, Illinois, we actually have a history of radioactive dumping.
Are you
Um,
for real?
yeah, so there was a factory that made lamps in the 30s, and then they used this material that's incandescent called thorium, which is radioactive. And in the 40s and 50s, that factory became a supplier for the Manhattan Project, the atomic bombs that fell on Hiroshima and
Yeah.
Nagasaki
Yeah.
in World War I or World War II.
Yeah. University of
So
Chicago too, right? Yeah.
exactly, yeah, yeah, that were developed there and detonated and tested in different areas around the suburbs. So um,
Wait, they were detonated and tested around the suburbs of
oh,
Chicago?
not the like the actual bombs, but there were like small tests
No
done in
way.
different areas. There's like this site, like there's a mound somewhere that someone was telling me about where you can like go there and it was a site of some kind of test, like in some preserve somewhere that you could just kind of walk to.
That's crazy.
There's Fermilab, that's not like a radioactive site, but they did all the particle
Yeah.
accelerators there. So that's really close to us.
Hmm.
Um, So sorry, that was
No.
I misspoke. I said detonated. That makes it
Yeah.
sound
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but they do talk about the fallout of the atomic bombs being, the workers of these
Yeah.
factories as well as the communities where these
Huh.
materials were developed. So that was our community, and they had these huge piles of this black tailing, which is like the byproduct of the materials that they were, concentrating for the bombs. And these were just piled up at the factory site, and they needed to get rid of them. These were and there was like sludge in unlined ponds. They offered the material to residents as landscaping material.
No.
So,
Did
so
they
it
did
just
they just
got,
not know?
I mean, you want to believe that they didn't know, but this was after the bombs had already fallen in Japan and people could see that there were effects, obviously long-term effects from radiation. So you want to say that they didn't know, but if they didn't know, they should have been more careful at least and not spread it
Huh.
around everywhere. So this went into, so our town is a Superfund, or it has been the site of 4 Superfund sites that have been cleaned up by the EPA to certain standards already. So by
What
the
does that
time they
mean?
moved in, So they dug out the materials that were like in people's yards, like sometimes like up to 8 feet deep, like up to the foundations of people's houses. Or sometimes they had to like get rid of like pieces of, foundation material that had, like, where the radioactive tailings had been mixed in with the concrete to like lay a foundation. So yeah, they dug up a bunch of stuff around town, like 600 to 700 properties they had to remediate.
Crazy.
Yeah, so when we moved into this town in 2015, they were shipping out the like last carloads, train carloads of thorium to like some facility in Utah in the desert to be properly disposed of. So I kind of heard about thorium and I was like, what is that? And I'm curious, I'm a curious person and I like to do research. So I ended up doing some reporting on that, really for my own sake to be sure that they had
Sure.
cleaned things up properly. Yeah, so that's another like whole arm of the kind of writing that I do.
Wow. So at that time, were you still kind of writing for Christianity Today? Or was this like where do
Yeah.
you put that kind of writing?
A lot of it goes into, well, there was a local nonprofit news outlet that focused on immigrant communities, and our town is predominantly Hispanic, and that's another result of partially of the thorium disaster is that there was some white flight, and Latino families moved into this area, and they didn't know that their houses were contaminated when they bought them. Um, so, I mean, there's a lot of justice issues that are kind of wrapped up in this story. But so, anyways, a nonprofit news magazine. That's where that came out. I've written for Grist. That's another environmental journalism outlet. But I like to try to, yeah, bring like my religion reporting and the environmental reporting together. I think that's definitely a sweet spot for me, like trying to bring the meaning and the meaning making and the like, oh, this is what happened that was really bad together.
Hmm. Well, yeah, because I discovered your writing because you're doing the same thing with bringing your religion, I guess maybe not religion reporting, but your sort of theological, spiritual lens to your writing around chronic pain. And you wrote a book about this. You've been now you're writing on Substack about this. But I found I think it was your book first um, because of what we've been dealing with my wife and her chronic pain that turned out either led to or was undiagnosed cancer. Um, and reading what you have written put a lot of words to the experiences that we've been going through, which was really helpful. Um, I could easily just quote your whole book back to you and be like, well, you said this, that was great. You said this, that was great. Because it was so helpful for
Mm.
me. But I'd love to just maybe ask you a couple questions about that book. But maybe the first is, okay, the book is called Hurting Yet Whole, Reconciling Body and Spirit in Chronic Pain and Illness. So right there, that title, um, body and spirit, and that bringing um, theology and religion lens to what's happening in a physical world. Um, what led to you writing a book about this topic? It's something I've not seen a lot of writing about.
Yeah, I mean, I love to write. As a journalist, I love to collect stories. And I also do like the big ideas as well. Um, as I went through this period in my early 20s that I had chronic pain that didn't have a very clear diagnosis, or at least not one that really made a difference in terms of treatment. It brought up lots of questions for me and the frameworks that I was trying to use, like the spiritual frameworks, to approach the problem, I guess. was not very helpful. So out of that period of time, I just had, I was wanting to, again, make sense of my own experiences. And a way that I do that a lot is by trying to hear from other people. So I
Mm,
wanted to write about my own experiences and bring in that theology, but also like I have the anthropology background. So bring in also kind of the sociological side of things, but also I wanted to hear from other people and how they've survived and even thrived in these times where they're facing these hard physical limits that don't go away and don't resolve neatly.
yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of like my own processing because I'm a writer and that's how I process is through writing.
Yeah. Would you maybe share a little bit of your story? I know it was pain that you were having in your, and I guess, are you still dealing with it, but in your feet primarily, right? Your feet and legs?
Yeah, I'm not still dealing with it on an ongoing basis. So it started in my like a year after I graduated from college, and it started with just a little bit of pain in my ankle. And I thought it was a sprain, and I got a boot, and I thought it'd go away, and it didn't go away. And um, I mean, I think now as somebody in my late 30s, it seems a little like impatient the way I approached it, but because I was so young, it like by the time like 3 months came around and I was still in pain, I was just like in despair because it just was not what I wanted for my life. And I had just gotten married and we wanted to go backpacking and do all these things, and I couldn't do any of these things.
Yeah.
So it's really frustrating. And ended up, I think, more than the pain itself, the mental health aspect was even more challenging because it just led to like a bunch of anxiety and ended up I was in like a period of a couple of years being pretty depressed because yeah, I just couldn't figure it out. And the tools that I had spiritually were just not cutting it as far as helping me to make it through. I mean, I think some of it was, but I mean, people would say like, you know, if you have one good foot, like that's enough. Like, like just like give God whatever God will use whatever you have, or like just be grateful that you have a husband and or whatever your life is good, or it's not about your physical health, it's about your spiritual health. So those kinds of things I just didn't feel like super satisfied with. So yeah, I keep coming back to, and this is the title of the book, is hurting it whole. Like I wanted to be whole, and for me that meant like not dismissing what was going on in my body, because I think that was kind of the message I was getting, like just kind of put the physical to the side.
Hmm.
And that's not what matters in your life. Like what matters is the spiritual, and that felt like it wasn't enough for me. And I wanted to be whole in the sense that I wanted to integrate my physical and my spiritual self and kind of have them speak to each other and not be siloed from each other.
Yeah. What was the what was your process of coming to a place of uh you know not saying like now you're whole, because I think we're all, and you say this in the book too, but we're, it's a journey, not a, destination. But what were some of the things that you discovered as you were researching this and just processing this on your own? What were some of the biggest sort of moments for you?
Yeah, I remember reading this book by Philip Yancey called Disappointed with God, or Disappointed with God, something like that. That was probably a couple years into being in pain. And I don't think it was necessarily the book itself, but just that idea of, oh, like this image I had of God, God has to act in this certain way for me to maintain a relationship with him. So there was a period where I just kind of had to let go of my images of who God is and what God does in the world, because and I come from an evangelical like faith tradition, and there's a lot of like God answers prayer and just like very clear cause and effect. Like you do this and God does this, and you act faithfully, and God will um, kind of do his part, and you'll have the life that you thought you wanted. Um, yeah, I think there's a lot of deconstruction, and just saying, oh, like I don't know if that God that I was praying to is really who God is.
Hmm.
Who is God now? If it's not
Hmm.
that God, that which is hard and kind of like, I mean, still leaves me with like a bit of like a hole of like, is God a personal God? Like, does God really care about like the details in our lives? I know I don't think God cares whether we find a parking spot. You know, there's that the joke
Hmm.
about like, yeah, I don't, you know, that like, we don't. That's not the kind of God, right? That I'm so thankful that I think, yeah. So those are the big things, you know, that sense of okay, if we pray and it matters to God, but it doesn't really come around and like actually make the tangible difference that we thought it was going to make, then what difference does it make to engage with God and to continue to have this kind of personal relationship where we expect God to respond? And what does it mean then for God to like love us and personally care about us if it's not that kind of what we thought it was? So sorry, that's a really roundabout way to say like
No,
I'm still in the middle of it.
no. I mean that I mean that's it, isn't it? I mean, I've read some of those books too. I think he Philip Yancey was the maybe the first person that I ever read that sort of gave permission to sort of have those honest dialogues for me. You talk in the book, and you mentioned, you kind of alluded to this a little earlier, but I love the word that you created. This idea of maybe the pain that's worse than the physical pain is the pain of all the things that you're missing, um, missing out on, and you use the phrase missingness, and I thought that was just such a great word. I watch it happen every day right now. Um, I have a feeling there are probably a lot of people that are listening to this um, that have or are currently experiencing that in some form. You know, in the book you share all these other people's stories, and it's like by telling these people's stories, you are showing us the difference between sort of this quick answer of healing versus this wider definition of wholeness. And what are maybe one or two of the stories that for you felt the most impactful and that you were excited to share with us in the book?
Yeah. Um, there's a lady named Pat that I share several of her stories in the book.
Yeah, yeah.
She's great. She's actually the spiritual director of one of my friends'
Hmm.
college, and I think she has fibromyalgia.
Hmm.
And I don't think it was like a particular story, but it's just like the way that she continued to kind of lean into her circumstances. So she, you know, she wanted to do spiritual direction. It took her 3 years. I mean, sorry, it took her like 9 years instead of 3 years, you know, to go through this spiritual direction course. She mentioned like she had to stand up sometimes in the back of the classroom because, you know, sitting was too painful at certain points and she changed
Hmm.
positions a lot. Um, but the way that she kind of allowed the what she was going through to work on her, and not in a like God did this so I could then have this experience or have this character trait formed in me, but just like a
Hmm.
okay, who is God for me now? Who am I now? Who am I becoming? And then like how she has become, like she's in her 60s and she's such a thoughtful and present person and um, has welcomed so many people who have various experiences of brokenness into their lives. Like she's been part of, you know, circles of racial reconciliation in her area. I think it just really spoke to me the ways that her own suffering kind of broke her open
Hmm.
to the suffering of other people, and allowed her to be like a healing presence for other people's suffering. And I talk about that. It's a Parker Palmer quote that I mentioned in the book. Like, you can be broken in the sense that you're shattered into, a million tiny pieces and can't be put back together, or you can be broken in the sense that you're broken open like a seed, and
Hmm.
a sprout emerges from that. And I think what Pat's story showed me is like the posture of how you receive what you're going through, like the softness that she was able to have in the middle of all the hard things allowed it to be a transformative experience for her. And again, I'm not trying to say like I'm really glad or that she was really glad that this happened, because nobody's ever really
Sure.
glad. But like her ability to just say, okay, this is what it is. And like, how do I be who God is calling me to be in the midst of this? And how do I be curious? I think that's so huge, is like being curious and like having your eyes open to just be surprised at what you might find like a dark space.
Yeah. That's that craft of suffering that you talk about towards the end of the book, isn't it?
Ah, right. Trying to remember, that was a while ago. I feel like there's things in the
Yeah,
book where
sorry.
I'm like,
I've read it
uh,
probably more recently than you have.
yeah. I know I said that somewhere in there.
I'm
It's
I'm
not coming
doing
up right
interviews
now.
for my book, and I'm like, did I really say that? I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's a great quote. Oh, I wrote it. Oh, great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay. So speaking of books that you've written, you have another book that's coming out soon, right?
Yeah,
Um,
this is a
uh,
really
you,
fun one.
yeah, I'm so excited about it.
Yeah. So yeah, my husband and I in 2022 took our kids out of school. My husband quit his job. We put our house on Airbnb and we just went to South America for a year. Something we've always wanted to do. Yeah, we were like, let's do it. If not now, when? And it actually turned out to be like really good timing, because when we got back, my parents both got sick, one after the other, and they needed care. And so
Wow,
this was the window to go.
wow.
Yeah. So it was a great experience. We stayed at different farms. Again, the environmental angle, like I really wanted to expose our kids to like communities that were being part of the solution to all of the kind of big environmental problems that
Hmm.
they're also like learning about. So we stayed at permaculture farms, a lot of really cool like projects that they got to see. And after a year, we came back and we plugged right back into our community here in West Chicago. But we have a travel blog, and it's getting more traffic, and the tendency is always to be like, let's monetize that and let's put ads on the site. And we don't really love that approach. So I wanted to have something that we could like sell, or some product we could offer. And a children's book just felt like something that felt really genuine to us, and not like as commercial or like in that kind of like put ads on your site way. So I
Yeah,
don't know if we're gonna make any money off of it, but it was a really fun process. My husband paints just for a hobby, so he did all the illustrations. And we both took a turn at writing the text, and then we read it to our kids, and our kids kind of told us which parts they liked the best, and we kind of pieced that together, the text of the book.
that's so fun. So your kids are like the
Yeah.
editors of the book.
Yeah, yeah, and they did have some comments about different illustrations too, about things that they liked or didn't like and wanted to include. So, yeah,
So fun. What? How old were your kids when you did this?
there were 3, 5, and 8 when we started
Oh
our
my gosh, so
travel.
they were young. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time because there's a lot less school pressure. So, the youngest was still in preschool and middle was in kindergarten. We had a second or third grader.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like we felt like we had to keep up with a certain curriculum to make sure. It was
Yeah.
like just basic reading and writing. We're
Yeah.
like,
You
okay,
weren't
we
doing
can handle that.
trigonometry. Yeah.
Right,
Wh-
right.
where did you go in South America?
We went to 8 different countries total. One of them was in Central America, Costa Rica. So
Oh,
we
sorry,
started,
South America. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We started in Brazil and then we went to Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, Ecuador, Bolivia, and Colombia. I think that's 7. And then Costa Rica at the
Wow.
end. Yeah.
What an amazing experience. How, what were your conversations, you and your husband, leading up to this? Like the day that you decided to do this, was there sort of an inciting moment that was like, okay, let's do it? Or was it a gradual thing or was it kind of sudden? Like, how'd you get to that point? That's a big decision.
Yeah, well, we've always wanted to live overseas and, thought about things like Peace Corps or my husband's an engineer, so there's some like overseas engineering service programs. But I think the thing that was holding us back was that we didn't want to like sell our house and move everything.
Mm.
And so when we have some family friends that kind of did the same thing. And the key piece for us was being able to do something with their house. So when they put their house on Airbnb for their year, we were like, oh, we can do that. That makes sense.
Hmm.
That kind of just like laid the groundwork for us. And then there was COVID, and then our third was a surprise baby. So we just kind of had to like wait for some things to like mature and like
Hmm.
work their way out before we could like actually take the step. But I think we were kind of setting ourselves up for it for several years. But yeah, once we got to like pulling the trigger, I think the hardest thing for my husband was, and for all of us, was obviously like the job security and
Yeah.
not knowing what we would come back to, and not knowing how much income we would have like on our trip. We ended up doing okay with freelancing between the two of us, but I think that was the biggest risk that we felt like we took, was like um, kind of like we were on this track, this career track with like retirement and this and that, like lined up. And if we could just coast on that track. And so to like pull the plug on that felt scary because we didn't know if we could plug back into it or what form, what shape our lives would take after the trip.
Hmm. Yeah. You're watching your kids learn all this stuff from these farms, and at that age you're learning something every day. Just you're learning everything, and I'm sure you guys are learning all sorts of things about this too. What what were some other things that you learned from these trips? What did you learn anything about yourself, about the world around you, that maybe you were surprised by or that was unexpected?
Yeah, I mean, personally, like you always hope that like something like this is life transforming, right? You always want that, like, oh, I did this and it changed my view. And I
Yeah,
feel
you want
like,
this like movie experience, right? Yeah.
yeah, um, you really do take all your problems with you when you travel. Like you
Yeah.
don't leave that behind. So I feel like that just became more clear. And like everyday life with 3 young children is like really kind of similar anywhere you go, whether you're in the United States or Brazil or
Mm-hmm.
Ecuador. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we were just doing a lot of um, normal life. And so on the one hand, that was like sort of disappointing, like not like we were doing anything really amazing. Most of the time, we're just like cooking and cleaning and telling the kids to brush their teeth and do homework and, or, do schoolwork. But I mean, I think just the sense of like we can do this life anywhere. Like we have the ability to make a life for ourselves in different places, and we can figure things out. We've traveled throughout our lives, and so just like doing that and in a long term and having that confirmed for us just felt like just gave us, I think, just a sense of confidence. Like, okay, we can make a life, anywhere we go, and we can make friends and we can learn new languages. And I think that was good for the kids too, to um, just have that sense of openness. Like you can
Yeah.
go anywhere and really plug in and find community.
Yeah. Do you and your husband speak Spanish?
We do, yeah. And we went to a Spanish speaking church for many years in our early
Oh,
marriage.
cool.
So we're both fluent in Spanish and kind of learned Portuguese just a year before we traveled through like YouTube and Duolingo. Yeah, so it was
That's
fun
awesome.
I think that's like really key to having like an immersive cultural experience in a place is getting to know the language so you can get to know people.
Yeah. Yeah. My oldest daughter just spent a year in Madrid. She speaks fluent
Um,
Spanish and
mhm.
got to go visit her, and I don't speak fluent Spanish. And it was amazing watching my kid navigate just like a Spanish person in Spain. And it was so fun having all the friends and neighbors, and this is I mean, just I felt like such a dumb American, and I have never regretted more not learning, not paying more attention in Spanish class in high school.
Oh,
So
there's always Duolingo
I
now, or all
know,
the different courses you could take.
I know. Well, I love that you got to show that to your kids and raise your kids in that so young. That's so just beautiful, and I love that you get to have this book to share with other families. And it's called what is it? My South American Classroom, right? And when does it come out?
December 1st.
Okay.
So yeah, we're self-publishing it, so that's a little bit different than my first book. Um, but it gave us some more, creative independence with what we wanted to do with the book. And honestly, it hopefully we can make some more income off of it that way
Sure.
too. So
Sure.
um, yeah, we're really excited to get it out in the world. My husband just does beautiful illustrations. So I'm really excited to have people hold the book in their hands.
That's great. We'll put a big link to it in the show notes for sure. And you guys, I mean, you even kickstarted it to get some funds to sort of do the first printing, right?
Yeah, well, we have a friend that does, she calls it like hybrid self-publishing. So she helps people through the self-publishing
Hmm.
process. So that's kind of what we used the funds for. And then we ended up, this is probably more detailed than you need to know, but we ended up going with a company in China to print the books. We were going to go with this print on demand, Ingram Spark is what it's called, but
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's a popular way. But we found out that the quality of the images of print on demand for Ingram Spark was like not up to par to what we wanted because we have
Yeah.
such beautiful paintings, hand paintings, and we really wanted them to like shine on the page. So yeah, we kind of switched gears in the middle of that.
Oh, no, that's definitely what I wanted to know. That's good for you. That's great. I'm so glad you did that. Um, okay, but and you were a part. I just read this right before we hopped on, so I know nothing about what I'm about to ask you about. But you just contributed to a new version of or a new printing of the Message Bible. Is that has
Yeah.
that come out yet? Is this like an ancient thing? Is this about
Oh
to
no,
come
no,
out?
it just came out.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
it
It's
sounds
just
fascinating. Would you tell me about this?
Yeah, this is my friend Catherine McNeil. She's also an author, and she's sorry, not the illustrator, the editor of the Message Bible. I think their idea was there's so many women in the Bible and so many stories that some of them are more focused on, and some of them you just don't know about. And
Yeah.
so let's get a bunch of modern day women to like help us interpret those stories and really bring these women to the forefront. So it's like the
Hmm.
text of the Message, like Eugene Peterson's translation of the Bible, and like tons and tons of reflections and character studies on women's issues. So I did one on like how do you read sexual violence in the book of Ezekiel, or
Wow.
like the postpartum provisions in Leviticus. Like, God has a lot of things that women can't or can't do after they have a baby. like all these instructions. So how do you understand those, as a woman today? Like, is that restrictive? Is that freeing? Like, what do they mean? So yeah. So this is really fun. I really was impressed by the diverse group of women that Catherine and her team got together to write these reflections. Like, they have a Native American woman who did a piece on the Israelites going into Canaan and like kicking out
Wow.
the people that lived there,
Whoa.
basically,
Oh
and
my
so
gosh.
it's like they didn't shy away from hard stuff.
That's amazing. I have got to get this. And it just came out. What's it called? It's the
Um,
Message Women's
so yeah,
Devotional
it's like
Bible. Is that right? I
the
wrote it down.
Message
Yeah, yeah,
Women's
yeah.
Devotional Bible.
Okay. Okay. So when you're going to write about postpartum provision in Leviticus or something like that, or reading violent sexual imagery in Ezekiel, like, how do you prep for that? You don't just like, I'm going to sit down and knock that out this afternoon. Like, you've got to put some that's going to go in a copy of somebody's
Bible,
Bible.
right?
Like,
I
like that is some fear and trembling situation right there. What kind of research do you do? Like, how do you get into the mindset of writing for something like that?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I think part of it is just saying, like telling myself, and I'm sure all the other women did this too, is that like my voice matters. Like I do have like one particular perspective, and I'm not gonna like downplay it or like make it more important, but it matters. And so like
Yeah.
I don't know, it's kind of like taking the stakes down a little bit. Like it is definitely like a fear and trembling thing. I'm like my words are next to Eugene Peterson's translation of the Bible. It's a little bit intimidating, but I think trying to just reframe it as like whatever I'm reading and experiencing, even if it's just one particular thing,
Hmm.
it doesn't have to be like the end all be all
Yeah.
interpretation. And so I'm going to put it out there, just realizing that it's going to be part of this big tapestry of other voices, and hopefully together, like it can reflect God in a more full way than we had before.
Hmm. Man, I can't wait to get this. That's really fascinating, and I'm so glad that somebody put that together. What a gift that's going to be.
Yeah.
Um, okay, well, I know you right before we hopped on, you mentioned that you have just started working. You have been on the board of an organization that a few of my friends work with, and now you've just come on staff working for this organization. Would you maybe tell me a little bit more about what you're doing there and what that organization does?
hmm yeah, this came out of my involvement with A Rocha USA, came out of similar season when I was getting really concerned about what's going on with God's creation and the way that there's so much pollution and harm, and wanting to do something about it. So that's when my friend Ben Lowe is now the executive director, but
Yeah.
he was the board chair at the time. So he asked me to join the board, and yeah, it's just nice to be able to be part of like things that are happening on the ground, where people are removing invasive species or planting trees or helping churches do energy audits or look at how they handle their waste. So, it's a Christian creation care group. It kind of has a roots in conservation, which means like, looking at species monitoring and preserving habitat, and thinking about like our responsibility to the rest of creation as part of our Christian calling, like that God made us for in relationship with the rest of creation. So how do we heal those relationships that have been damaged? So yeah, A Rocha USA does a lot of things nationally and with some local projects. And like you said, there's a couple staff members in Tennessee. So and we have cohorts of churches who are interested in going deeper into what it means to love their places, in this like kind of 1 year journey that we're taking them on together, that are running in different areas of the country and virtually. So yeah, hop onto our website. It's arocha.us. And so you'll find lots of resources there and ways to plug in locally or through a lot of the just courses and resources for individuals.
What this is a I know I've heard of this before. What does A Rocha mean? The word, where does it come from?
It comes from Portuguese, so it's actually in Portuguese, it's a rocha, and it means the rock. And it came from A Rocha is an international family of organizations, and it started first in Portugal with a group of people that wanted to care for this marshy area and like monitor the bird species. And they started an intentional Christian community there, scientists and volunteers. And so that's why we have the word, which is very hard to pronounce for Americans. So we are always like, A Rocha, A Rocha, A Hasha, La Rocca, whatever you want to say, it's fine. It's a little unfortunate that, yeah, that it's hard to pronounce and weird, but maybe it's a conversation starter.
Well, I have a last name that feels like that to a lot of people, so I understand it.
Yeah. How do you say your last name?
Yeah. Well, I say it Osenga. All my family that lives near you says Osenga, but they pinch their nose. Osenga.
Okay.
So who knows? But apparently got misspelled at Ellis Island, and everybody in Holland spells it different there. So who
Okay.
knows?
So it has Dutch
it
origins.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. It's wild, isn't it? Yeah. But I think it's awesome that you're doing that. It always has sometimes just hurt my heart to see that the caring for the earth sometimes seems to be treated like an enemy of the church, politically sometimes. And it's always like, why on earth would we are called so clearly in Scripture to care for the world, to care for the earth. And you just look around you and think, why, this is a gift from God, and why would we not want to steward it well and care for it? And somehow it's gotten twisted. No, this is kingdom work. To care for the world around us is not just obvious, but beautiful. And I'm so grateful and thankful that you're there doing that work. So what's your role there?
I'm a communications director.
Communications director. Okay, that's awesome. Well, Liuan, I'm so glad that you would take some time out of your day to hang out with me, and we'll definitely be sending people to find your books and A Rocha. If people want to connect with you or find out more about the work you're doing, find your Substack, your travel blog, how do they connect with you?
Oh, you can go to my website. It's liuanhuska.com. And then my family travel blog, that's where you can get our children's book, is Slow Camino. So slow, and then camino is a Spanish word that means way. So the slow way.com.
Slow Camino would be a great band name too. Just saying.
Yeah, we like to use it for a lot of things. Like my husband does his freelance work under Slow Camino LLC, and then we have all kinds of other random things. We're like, this is just like our empire of Slow Camino, like things.
Make a cool hat, and I'll buy that hat. I'll wear that T-shirt. That's just cool. That's cool.
Thanks.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, thanks again so much. Yeah, really a treat. Liuan is so cool, right? Guys, let's all go buy that book, My South American Classroom. That is so cool. We're going to put the link to that in the show notes. Also, let's put the link to this book, my book, How to Remember Forgotten Pathways to an Authentic Faith. You're like, man, was he ever going to stop talking about that book? And the answer is eventually, but not for a while. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I really did. I learned stuff, and that's a good thing. We should keep learning. I should say this too. She also brought up Philip Yancey. We talked about him just a little bit. But I just finished his autobiography. I think it's called Where the Light fell or something like that. I can't remember what the actual title is. This is terrible. It was so good. I am a huge Philip Yancey fan. Just a plug for anyone who's listening who might be like neighbors with him or something, best friends with him, take care of his cat when he's touring or something. I don't know. I want to talk to Philip Yancey sometime because I'm a major fan. And his books about pain were also the first time I'd ever really heard about it through a theological lens. And that was profound for me as a young man. Thank you guys so much for listening. This was really delightful. Next week, it's going to be an awesome episode. You're going to want to check it out. Hope to see you on the road at the Behold the Lamb shows this December. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if you're watching on YouTube, please click like, subscribe, all those things. Also, I don't really talk about this. The Substack. Please subscribe to my Substack. I try to write on there every week, and that's how I kind of keep in touch with people. Please sign up for my Substack, and let's stay in touch. You can also email me there if you've got thoughts, questions, ideas about the podcast. We'll be back next week, and hope you've enjoyed today. It's been a lot of fun to make this for you. All right, have a great one. Now, go do something awesome.